Today's lesson is Little Penguin's Big Adventures. Hi, everybody. My name is Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And today, in our animal unit for the month of June, we're going to go to the southern hemisphere and talk about little penguins, also called blue penguins, and I guess they're native to New Zealand, although you can find different kinds of penguins in various places in the southern hemisphere.
There you go. Little penguins, blue penguins, or fairy penguins, all the different names, maybe apart from the blue one, gives us an idea to its size. It's a very small little bird, and the blue penguin actually also points out another interesting feature, that these birds have blue feathers as opposed to the usual black and white color scheme of their larger penguin relatives. So let's check out some of the little penguins, some of their big adventures, and find out all about this penguin with several different names. Little penguins, big adventures. The little penguin, also known as the blue penguin or fairy penguin, is the world's smallest penguin species. It stands just 30 to 33 centimeters tall and weighs around 1.5 kilograms. These cute birds are also known for their unique blue feathers, which set them apart from their larger black and white relatives. The blue color helps them blend into the ocean and hide from predators, providing a necessary camouflage given their vulnerable size.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 species， 它的意思是动植物的物种。例如 There are only a few species of birds that can survive in this desert. 只有少数几种鸟类能在这片沙漠生存。或者 Scientists recently discovered a new species of plant in a nearby forest. 科学家最近在附近的森林发现了一种新的植物品种。继续看到片语 set somebody or something apart from 加名词，表示使点点点与众不同，或是使点点点脱颖而出。例如 Joan's attention to detail really sets her apart from the other candidates. Joan 对细节的关注确实使她有别于其他候选人。或是 This home's unique design sets it apart from the others in this neighborhood. 这间房子的独特设计使它有别于这社区的其他房子。后面看到名词 predator， 它的意思是捕食者或是掠食动物。例如Lions are powerful predators that hunt in groups. 狮子是强大的掠食者，会成群结队捕猎。也可以说 Make sure to keep an eye out for predators while you're camping. 露营时一定要留意掠食动物。
Okay, so as you know, there are many different species of penguins. The one we're going to focus on today is the little penguin, which is also known as the blue penguin or fairy penguin, and it is the world's smallest penguin species. Now, a species is like a kind of animal that can reproduce with others of its kind, like the human species, for example. There have been various different kinds of humans. Right now, we're all Homo sapiens. That is the current species of human beings, although there have been other ones in the past, like Neanderthals or whatever. They were also a species of humans.
Absolutely right. And of course, emperor penguins are the largest penguins. Those are the ones we might picture when we think of a penguin. They have that unique sort of orange and yellow feature around their eye. And of course, the famous Penguin Publishing Company, makers of many fine paperback books, they have an emperor penguin as their company logo. And then far at the other end of the size scale in penguin world, we have the little penguin, the blue penguin, the fairy penguin. How big is it? Well, I'm glad you asked. It says it stands just 30 to 33 centimeters tall and weighs around 1.5 kilograms. This is a small penguin compared to some of its relatives. Yeah, it's about a foot tall, 30 to 30 centimeters. Think of that longer ruler you might have taken with you to school. That's about 30 centimeters long, or about 1 foot, and it's around 1.5 kilograms. So really really doesn't weigh much more than a couple of small sacks of potatoes. So these are very small but very interesting little birds, and they're also cute. As we learn in the next sentence, these cute birds are also known for their unique blue feathers, which set them apart from their larger black and white relatives. Yeah, when I was asking you to picture a penguin, along with the interesting orange eye marks of the emperor penguin, the other thing, of course, about penguins is that they seem to be wearing a tuxedo, a kind of black and white suit. Their backs are usually black, their fronts are usually white. But the little penguin is quite interesting because it has blue feathers, so that definitely sets it apart from. When something sets something or someone apart from something or something else, that's what makes it different. The most noticeable difference, the thing that will pop to your mind when you're thinking of how these things are different. This is the thing that sets them apart. This is the thing that makes them different. And it is so different that the blue penguin is actually one of the alternative names for this bird.
Pretty cool, and the blue color helps them blend into the ocean and hide from predators, providing a necessary camouflage given their vulnerable size. This sentence is not very long, but it is crammed with lots of different vocabulary terms that we need to define for you now. First of all, we've got the verb to blend, and this is used with the preposition into, to blend into something. That just means it kind of mixes in, and then you can't really see it. It kind of camouflages it, it kind of hides it, so it blends into the ocean. Some people don't like to be noticed, for example, so they might want to blend into a crowd, just be someone in the crowd and not really noticed so much. But here they blend into the ocean so they can hide from those nasty predators. And a predator is an animal that attacks and kills other animals for food.
That's right, a hunting animal. And of course, the animals that are being hunted would be the prey, P-R-E-Y. So I guess the blue penguin would be the prey for maybe large seals or sharks or things like that, orcas. And so, of course, having this wonderful blue coat allows it to blend into the ocean, to kind of disappear, to hide in the ocean, providing a necessary camouflage given their vulnerable size. Yes, small animals obviously would be more at risk of being gobbled up by larger hunting predators. So this gives it camouflage. Camouflage is that wonderful word. I believe it comes to us from French, and it's talking about blending into your background. Animals can do this naturally with the color of their feather or furs or designs of the patterns on their body. And of course, also when we think of camouflage, we think of soldiers wearing those clothes that are sort of gray and brown and green that help them blend into the forest or into an urban area, that kind of help them hide when they're trying to hide from the enemy. So you camouflage yourself to blend in, to sort of disappear into the background, into the environment in which you are living or working or fighting in the case of soldiers. And this is given because of their vulnerable size. They're very small, they're very tiny, but they're also very delicious. So they're quite vulnerable. When you're invulnerable, you're in danger. The potential for harm or even death is high, or the potential of a risk of something bad happening is high as well. So if you're vulnerable, you might want to take protections. Obviously, with our health, if you're vulnerable to getting a cold or a flu, you might want to wear a mask when you go outside and get a flu shot at the beginning of the winter season. Because you're weaker, there's some potential danger that could affect you more likely than other people.
Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part. We will listen first.
The penguins are found along the shores of Australia and New Zealand. They thrive in coastal environments where they can nest in burrows, among rocks, or even under human structures. Unlike their Antarctic cousins, little penguins prefer milder climates and are most active at night, returning from the sea under the cover of darkness for safety.
第二部分介绍动词 thrive， 表示茁壮成长，或是繁荣，或是兴盛。可以说 Months of rain helped the plants thrive during the summer. 几个月的雨帮助植物在夏季期间茂盛成长。又或者说 The department store is thriving under Rita's management. 那家百货公司在 Rita 的管理之下茁壮成长。再来看到 coastal 这个单字，它是形容词，它的意思是海岸的或是沿海的。例如 Coastal cities often have a strong fishing industry. 沿海城市通常有强劲的捕鱼产业。再看一个例子 The storm is threatening several coastal towns. 这场风暴正在威胁几个沿海城镇。接着介绍形容词 Antarctic， 指的是南极的。举例来说 Hagar is a famous Antarctic explorer. Hagar 是一位著名的南极探险家。
All right, back with our article. So now let's talk about where these lovely little penguins can be found. It says the penguins are found along the shores of Australia and New Zealand. Yes, it's true. A lot of people think of penguins as living in Antarctica, the South Pole, and of course, that's where I think the majority of them will be found. But you'll also find some on the southern coast of Australia, just across from Antarctica, also South Africa, and I believe also the southern tip of South America, down there in Patagonia, where Argentina and Chile meet. So they're not just in Antarctica, they are also in the lands slightly to the north, but still, of course, very, very cold parts of the world. It says they thrive in coastal environments where they can nest in burrows, among rocks, or even under human structures. Well, okay, so they've found themselves a happy home when they're doing well, and that's what it means to thrive. When you're doing well in your environment or in whatever you're doing in life, in your situation, yeah, it means you're doing well. Everything's going well. If your friend moves off to a big city for a new job and a new challenge and a new life, and a year or two later, you find out how well you're doing, you say, wow, you're really thriving here. You seem happy, you seem healthy, you got a great job, you got a bunch of friends, you're doing well, your life is good. So they live in a comfortable situation and they prosper, I guess you could also say, in coastal environments. Yes, I've never heard of a mountain-dwelling penguin. They generally live in coastal environments, meaning where the land meets the sea. Of course, they will live on the land, sleep on the land, and lay eggs and raise their young on the land, but they need the water to get food. Of course, that's where they will hunt for fish and other things like that. So a coastal environment where the land meets the water is ideal for them. When we think of Taiwan, of course, it's a lot of coastal areas in Taiwan, it being an island. And on these environments, they nest in some interesting places.
They certainly do, and of course, they nest in burrows. A burrow is just a hole that's dug usually into the ground. I suppose it could be dug in other places, but that's where they live and that's where they nest, which means that's where they lay their eggs and the eggs hatch and become baby penguins. So yes, they nest in those burrows, and those burrows, of course, could be among rocks or even under human structures, like a house or something like that. Sometimes houses are kind of raised up a little bit so they can kind of fit in there, or maybe they dig a burrow under the house. So these are some characteristics of these blue penguins, and I suppose the Kiwis in New Zealand really like these little devils because they're so cute and they can hang out with them.
Unlike their Antarctic cousins, little penguins prefer milder climates and are most active at night, returning from the sea under the cover of darkness for safety. That's a very interesting behavior, but this is also what sets them apart or makes them unlike, not like their Antarctic cousins. When we say Antarctic, we're using the adjective form of Antarctica, the southernmost continent, the seventh continent, a lot of people would call it, the one with very few people or almost no people living on it, the South Pole, in other words. So unlike their cousins, the other types of penguins that live on Antarctica around the South Pole, little penguins prefer milder climates, so they prefer slightly warmer temperatures. They don't like the deep cold, especially maybe in the winter down there in Antarctica. And, of course, that explains why they live in Australia and New Zealand, which, of course, yes, have milder climates. When we say it's milder, it's not as strong, it's not as powerful, it's not as intense. If you don't like very spicy food, you might like milder food that's not so hot and spicy, so not so powerful, not so strong. In this case, not so cold. And they're most active at night. We might call them nocturnal animals, animals that do their moving around and, of course, a lot of their hunting and food gathering at nighttime. And it says they return from the sea under the cover of darkness. When you're doing things under the cover of darkness, you're doing things at night. Criminals might do their illegal businesses under the cover of darkness, or a spy might move around the city under cover of darkness to avoid being seen by the police or something like that. And yes, nocturnal animals like bats and others do most of their outside work, I guess you could say, under the cover of darkness. They do it for safety. They do it because it gives them advantage over their prey, the animals they're hunting. And of course, in the case of little penguins, they do it because many of the large ocean-going predators, things like sharks and whatnot, they don't hunt at night, so it makes it safer for our little friends to go out there and do a little bit of fishing.
Right, so if they're active at night, of course, they are nocturnal, and that's kind of interesting because most penguin species are active during the day. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson. Let's move on now to the third and final part. We will listen first.
The birds are strong swimmers, capable of reaching speeds of up to 6 kilometers per hour and diving to depths of about 60 meters in search of food. They hunt fish and other marine animals both individually and in groups, depending on the size of the prey. They often travel long distances from the shore to find a large enough catch before returning to the same nesting spot each night.
第三部分看到形容词 marine 表示海洋的或是与海洋相关的，例如 Marine animals like dolphins and sea turtles live in the ocean. 海豚和海龟等海洋动物生活在大海中。也可以说 You can see an astonishing variety of marine life at coral reefs. 你可以在珊瑚礁看到令人惊奇的多样化海洋生物。最后看到 prey 这个单字，它是名词，表示猎物或是被捕食者。我们可以说 Unable to run, the sick zebra became prey to a lion. 那只生病的斑马无法奔跑，而成了狮子的猎物。最后一个例子 Unaware of the danger nearby, the young rabbit soon became the prey of a hungry fox. 那只小兔子没有意识到附近的危险，很快就成为饥饿狐狸的猎物。
All right, back to our article about little penguins. Let's find out about some of their statistics. These are always very interesting. The birds are strong swimmers, it says, capable of reaching speeds of up to 6 kilometers per hour and diving to depths of about 60 meters in search of food. Okay, well, obviously, being penguins, being water birds, they're very comfortable in the water and they move easily in the water. Their bodies are designed like little torpedoes, so they're capable of reaching some pretty quick speeds there, 6 kilometers per hour underwater, much faster, obviously, than a human could swim. And also, they can swim much deeper than your average person. They go down to around 60 meters in search of food. I think most people can go around 20 or 30 meters, and you'd probably need a bit of special training to do that. You'd feel the pressure in your ears and whatnot, and it probably wouldn't be safe to go down much further unless you've practiced for it. But these little penguins can easily get down to 60 meters below the surface of the water in search of food, or while hunting, in other words. And what do they hunt?
Well, they hunt fish and other marine animals, both individually and in groups, depending on the size of the prey. So this is what they hunt. This is the food that they look for. They're looking for fish, probably other fish that are smaller than they are, or they're also looking for other marine animals. If something is marine, that means it has to do with the sea. Mar, M-A-R in Latin, and in Espanol también. Marine just means of the sea. So they're looking for other marine animals, and they do this both individually and in groups. So I suppose one single penguin might go down there and hunt for fish and other marine animals, or they do it together in groups, kind of like trying to find food for everybody.
Depending on the size of the prey, so larger animals, larger fish or whatever, they might use a few penguins to take it down, or maybe they kind of like wolves, maybe they kind of herd the fish towards other groups of waiting penguins or something like that. So they have many different ways of collecting food, of hunting, and it says they often travel long distances from the shore to find a large enough catch before returning to the same nesting spot each night. So they might live in coastal areas, but they don't just hunt in coastal areas. I guess we might say they hunt in the open ocean. They go farther away from land looking for large schools of fish or rich hunting grounds and things like that. They're not afraid to venture quite far away from their home base. They find a large enough catch, or enough food, in other words, enough food to eat or for their purposes, and then eventually they will return to the same nesting spot each night. They'll swim back to the land and go back to their comfy little burrow under a house or on a beach somewhere.
Absolutely, and that seems very impressive to me because they are hunting at night, so I wonder how they see those fish in the darkness of the sea or how they hunt under the cover of darkness, so maybe they can see infrared light or something like that, who knows. But in any case, they are very crafty, skillful little devils, and that's why we are talking about them in our program today. Okay, that brings us to the end of our discussion for today. Let's turn things over now to our dear Chinese teacher, Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到 The little penguin, also known as the blue penguin or fairy penguin， 小蓝企鹅又称为蓝企鹅或是神仙企鹅。那这边用到 also known as， 前方是省略了 which is。 然后课文还有一句提到 These cute birds are also known for their unique blue feathers。 这些可爱的鸟类也以其独特的蓝色羽毛闻名。这两个句子里面的 known 可以表达已知的、知名的。那我们来整理一下相关的句型。第一个 be known as， 它可以表达以什么而为人所知，通常是指以名称啊、身份等等为人所知，表达被称作什么。所以这个 as 后面接的名词通常就会是身份啊、职业、称号等等。举例来说 Paris is known as the city of light。 巴黎被称作光之城。好，第二个补充的句型 be known for， 它是表达以某个特色、特质、成就闻名，后面可以接名词或动名词。例如 The city is known for having some of the best museums in the world。 这座城市以拥有世界上最好的一些博物馆而闻名。第三个补充的是 be known to 加上原形动词，这可以表达已知会做某事，以做某事出名。例如 Regular exercise is known to have many health benefits。 大家都知道规律运动有许多健康益处。好，那么课文第三部分有一句提到他们会单独或成群捕猎鱼类和其他海洋生物，这取决于猎物的大小。那文中是用 depending on the size of the prey 去表达这取决于猎物的大小。 depending on 是独立分词片语，相当于 according to， 用来表达取决于什么，根据什么来看。那么之后可以接名词或名词子句。例如 This cake can serve 4 to 6 people, depending on how you slice it。 这个蛋糕可供4到6个人享用，取决于你的切法，就看你怎么切咯。那顺便补充一下片语动词 depend on 或者是 depend upon 的用法。 depend on 或是 depend upon 后面可以接人或事物，那常见的意思有2种。第一个呢，它可以表达取决于是什么而定。例如 We're not sure if we will go picnicking.It depends on the weather。 我们不确定是否会去野餐，这要视天气而定。第二个表达的意思是仰赖、依靠，意思就跟 rely on 差不多。例如 Jenny used to depend on her husband to drive her everywhere。 Jenny 以前都是仰赖她先生载她去各个地方。好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Species.Scientists recently discovered a new species of butterfly in the forest nearby. Blend. The deer blended into the woods, making it difficult for the hunter to spot. Predator. Lions are powerful predators that hunt together in groups called prides. Vulnerable. As they ran across the open field, the soldiers were particularly vulnerable to attack. Thrive.Plants need to get sufficient amounts of sunlight and water in order to thrive. Mild. Last year, we had a relatively mild winter with very little snow. Marine. Plastic waste and other forms of pollution pose a serious threat to marine animals. Prey. Small fish frequently become prey for larger creatures like whales, dolphins, and
sharks.Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.